Her fam, what's going on? It's your boy Joe Hinton as always.
It's your girl Candace. What's up, y'all?
What's up? What's up? We are back again for another episode.
Yes.
Episode 12. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're always glad to be back with you guys. As you should know, for those that's been following, we've been having great conversations about different forms of relationships, community, connecting to others, getting value out of ourselves, bringing the best out of others. It's been a good conversation we've been having, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, we're continuing on in that conversation. We most recently have been talking about community and finding where we fit, right? And we were last talking about in the previous episode just really how we perceive others and what we receive from others based on that perception, because we want to get the value out of ourselves and out of the people around us. But today we want to take a deeper look at our personal value, right? And how we bring that to the table and environments, right?
Yeah.
Really, I want to coin it leadership, right?
Okay.
Leadership, right? I say that because I actually think every single person has a unique set of gifts and talents and graces on their life, abilities within them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's divinely so. I think it's not by happenstance. The combination of, the person's makeup and composition, how they think, things that they're able to do that makes them unique and all that type of stuff. And I think it is an expression of their personal leadership. In the Bible, when man was first made, man and woman, well, it was said to them, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. But it said subdue the earth, subdue and have dominion. That means to dominate. And it indicates the innate, inclination to bring about leadership.
Yeah.
And I think that's inside of each individual person. It's just figuring out where we have the leadership value and how to bring it to the table and bring it to environments and express it, right? Now, I got to thinking though. I mean, most often when people think about leadership in general and start thinking about their personal leadership, we tend to begin in a space of thinking about exceptionality, right?
Yeah.
Thinking like, what's within me that is unique, but not only unique, but exceptional, or something that is like makes me stand out and is a cut above the average person, right?
Right.
Now, isn't that interesting? Like when you think about leadership, innately inside of leadership, there's a thing you can deduce that it's about people together, right? But we first can innately, either consciously or subconsciously, think about separating ourselves and distinguishing ourselves.
Yeah.
But not only distinguishing ourselves, but putting an emphasis on really our performative value.
Wow.
Performative value.
Yeah.
As what makes us special to bring about, leadership and impact to people. Have you considered that?
I don't know. It's something that about the way you're expressing this and the way I'm hearing what you're saying that's really making me think about the differences between exceptionalism and leadership. Because if you really think about it, leading implies that you're going somewhere, right? So as a leader, you're helping to take people from one place to another.
Yeah, I was going to say not only going somewhere, but you're not going there by yourself.
Right.
You're bringing other people along with you.
Yeah. Versus, having the natural, process of, or maybe even experience of, being amongst your family or friends or your community or people around you and being celebrated for a unique talent or gift that you have and kind of being known in your community or your area or your family for your unique contribution to that community. And how easy it is to focus on that,
Yeah,
and
lean into it.
Lean into that performative value because it's what you can become known for or loved for, admired for, respected for, right? And I also think culturally, exceptionalism is constantly on display.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you think about, your favorite athlete or performer, singer, artist, or, let's even with the Olympics, the Olympics are coming up and the whole world is going to stop to watch the best of the best
Right.
athletes all over the world compete, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every country wants to be the top.
Right.
We're aiming for the most exceptional country in each of these sports,
Yeah.
right?
Listen, even locally, the Olympic trials are happening as we speak.
Right.
And we're trying to figure out
Yes.
who's a cut above the
Right.
rest in every category in every particular sport, right?
Right.
And those will then be the people we will send to the Olympics, right?
Exactly.
So we're starting with this weeding out
Yes.
based on performative value.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's just a part of our culture
Right.
to focus on and appreciate, even admire exceptionalism.
And it shows what we're valuing first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, interestingly enough, you started with the thing of something that's just like recognized in the form of community, right?
Yeah.
And I think, that is an optimistic way to look at it, right? Because it says, oh, let's say a person just has a gift or a talent and they didn't really know it was exceptional, but it's their community that pointed out that, oh,
Right.
you're really good at this. And they're kind of egging you on and championing you, and then therefore you lean into it, right? But that's not always the way it goes.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's a person within themselves are looking for a thing that they think that they may be better than others in, or they are looking for their exceptionalism, like what separates them from others.
Right.
And then because they have identified it either through analysis or even because they're performing a thing and they see a result or reaction that gives them the indicators to say, oh yeah, I'm different in this. People may lean into that in a heavier way because they may personally value separating and distinguishing themselves.
Right.
That might be one of their highest values. So people then lean into that, and they may lean into that in every environment they go to, right? Because of the significance of their ideas about leadership, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really came at this to first talk about, it's so interesting how leadership is about the togetherness of people and going a place and how a person may bring great value to that. But often we may start with separating ourselves.
Right.
We're starting with, setting ourselves apart first, right?
Yeah.
And that's so interesting to me, right?
Yeah.
And culturally, because that may be promoted, we all may either consciously or subconsciously lean in that direction,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
But
That's
there are,
true.
excuse me, there are some other ideas about leadership, right? That may be slightly differently
Yeah.
or different. And when I think, about business, for example, once again, in business, some people may define the leaders in business, those who make the most money or have the most profits and things like that. But I really think it starts with something at the core first. I think businesses make money at the rate that they meet needs of people.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? So at the rate that your business serves people, then you gain profits, right? Now, of course, there's a lot of other components of business, like your operational costs, the cost of goods, your logistics, whatever industry you're in. There may be many other components inside of it that determines its end all be all profits. But at its lowest level, right?
Yeah.
You profit you profit at the rate in which you serve people.
Right.
So the question comes to mind, well, do most people, when they're thinking of their personal leadership, are most people first thinking about serving people and how whatever they are uniquely graced with or gifted with, how it's going to serve people? Especially in a culture where we first celebrate exceptionalism. Like if I'm Chris Brown and I can sing and dance better than everyone, does that mean I can take everybody else into singing and dancing that good? Right? Right? If I'm Sha'Carri Richardson,
Right.
and I'm running better than everyone, right?
Yeah.
Can I take other people into running that well, right? you know, and you name, you know, a thing. If I'm Elon Musk and I'm just an exceptional mind, you know, am I leading other people into that thinking, right? Or is it more my exceptionalism remains on display and I may be celebrated from afar
Yeah.
without us really realizing it's celebration from afar. It's not necessarily leadership, meaning taking others into what it is you function in,
Yeah.
right?
Wow, that's so
And so
true.
there's a different, you know, different way of thinking about leadership. I mean, what caused me to think about this, or one component of me thinking about this, is as I've grown and I've evolved and things like that, and going through different environments, whether it's professional environments and communities, like whether it's religious communities, civic communities, these things like that, even just your general neighborhood, right? I can look back and think about the experiences on where I might have been embraced, or the experiences where I may have not been as well received, you know, even in some of the instances where I was received for my performative value, but it may not have resulted in the people receiving my person, right? And when I think through all the nuances, it made me think about this contrasting component of leadership, the difference between exceptionality and performative value versus service and people engagement,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I even was able to identify missed opportunities, right? On, you know, how I brought myself to the world, right? And, you know, the mind states I might have been in different seasons of my life, that, and it may have been completely subconscious, right? But it's until you kind of evolve in thinking and all those types of things that you can look back and you can say, oh man, just one slight tweak of, you know, the way I was thinking and the way I brought, you know, what it is I bring to the table in my personal leadership to an environment would have made all the difference on how it was received and how it benefited others and the impact it made from environments and all those types of things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this difference between like being service oriented versus being performative, right? I'd say one of the things, you know, about being performative, because once again, if our focus is like leveling up, right? A lot of times when people think about leadership, they're thinking about them being on top, right?
Always.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and them having command, right? And going to higher and higher levels, like leveling up more and more and more, right? Well, when we say it that frankly,
Yeah.
it sounds very self-interested,
Yes, it does.
right? Right. But great leadership should, you know, be a value to all the people who are involved that
Yeah.
are being taking a place.
Right.
And once again, you already, you know, put out there how culturally often we just deem something leadership just because a person has high performative value.
Right.
Right? They can
Yeah.
do something that the average person can't do. So we say, oh, crown him.
Yes.
Right? But that doesn't mean the person is a true leader
Yeah.
from the standpoint of they have the heart, the mind, the philosophy, the skills to take other people with them
Right.
to a place.
Right. That's true. I mean, we always look at let's take the athletes, since we were talking about the Olympics. When they get that gold medal, we're like, oh man, they did such a good job. And they earned it because they have the skill, they have the talent, right? But nobody really thinks about the coach.
That's right.
Nobody says, who's their coaching team?
Yeah, that's right.
Who led them and trained them
Yeah.
to get them to the place that they get this gold medal?
Yeah.
You know, nobody really ever, you don't see that in the headlines.
Yeah, unless you're Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, but
Well,
other
yeah.
than that, you're
Yeah, you know.
right.
Yeah, you know, but it's like,
Yeah.
okay, who's the coach that led them here?
Yeah,
You know?
or all the staff, not just the coach,
Right.
but all of the staff
Right.
that play a part in how that individual or that team got
Right.
to a place.
Exactly.
I think another thing too is even as consumers and people who view it or look upon it, we tend to get our value out of that experience by having symbolic wins.
Yes.
Like we in our own heart and our mind will attach ourselves to a person who has exceptionalism and high performative value because there's something in them that resonate with us
Right.
or that we find commonality in or we just want to believe in, right?
Yeah, that's
so
true.
when that person wins,
Right.
it just gives us hope and makes us feel good when they win.
That's true.
But that doesn't necessarily mean we won.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It means that person won.
Yeah.
And man, that makes me wake up and go to my job tomorrow, even if it's a dead end job, and say, "Boy, did you see that?"
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It
it's
makes
inspiring.
me. It's inspiring. It makes me feel good for another day.
Yeah.
But I might not have truly won because that person didn't take me somewhere
Right.
with them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
They just leaned into their exceptionalism.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
there's a higher level of leadership that truly takes people with you in the direction that you're going. But I think that all hinges on, well, what's being emphasized in your uniqueness, in your performative value, and your exceptionalism. If you reposition it from trying to separate yourself from others, but then you take that strength and you come amongst people and you really come under people and you use that strength to help others in areas that they may be weak.
Yeah.
Now that's a very high level of leadership, right? But how often is that in the headlines or champions?
Yeah.
Who gets the gold medals for that?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. We don't see that.
Yeah, we don't. Now listen, the Bible says that the greatest in the kingdom of God will be the servants,
Yeah.
right? And so I think the fact that it had to be spoken by our Savior
Yeah.
says that it's a mindset that's
Yeah.
not common,
Right.
right?
That's true.
To take our strengths and our uniqueness and position it in the package of just service and
Yeah.
lowliness, although it could be positioned in a very exceptionalism posture,
Yeah.
standing out ahead and separating and distinguishing, right? It really takes a certain level of character and a mindset to position our strengths like that.
It does. It really does. I'm thinking that I don't know if this is a quote, but I know it's something that I personally kind of think through. And it's the fact that I guess there's a balance of exceptionalism and service for great leadership. And the reason I say that is because their leaders do have to go first.
Yes.
So you can't be like at the same pace and the same timing of the people that you're trying to take somewhere.
Right.
You do have to be distinguished a little bit, right?
Yes.
But you're talking about more the emphasis of what we consider when we think about like quality leadership.
And what motivates a person when they're either operating leadership
Yeah.
or looking to ascend into leadership.
Right. And that ascend into leadership that's a big one. That's a big one. And I think it's interesting that, I'm thinking about different stages and phases of life where I may have personally leaned into my exceptionalism and was looking for that to be the thing that promoted me to a leadership place.
Yes.
Right? But the reality is the people that were often chosen for leadership were the ones that had the propensity to teach others how to do what they do.
Yeah, you know what? I've really also done the same and looked back over my life and thought about this. And, you started by talking about a person who may be in a neighborhood or something like that, and they may have a special talent or skill. And because the people around them, put emphasis on it and highlight it and say, oh, man, you're good at that. That then awakens something in that person and may make them lean into it. Well, my mind started going down the path that the truth is most groups of people want to choose their kings.
Yes.
And they want to choose, those that are their leaders.
Right, yeah.
So it becomes much more easily accepted when a person is amongst a group of people and they have a unique gift or talent that others recognize,
Right.
as opposed to the person
Right.
comes in with their strength and they're just imposing and dominating with that
Yes.
strength
Yeah.
everywhere,
Yeah.
and then therefore ascending themselves
Right.
and asserting themselves into leadership over others.
Yeah.
And this is whether people are aware of it or not. I think this is an innate reaction
Yes.
out of people.
I agree with
You
that.
know, and so when I look back and reminisce on my own personal experiences or environments I've been in, things like that, I think I see a common thread to say, oh wow, people tend to more readily receive when they consciously are choosing a person because they favor them because of something, or if a person is very skilled about allowing it to be perceived that they were chosen by the group,
Right.
by engaging and curating environments and things like that, in a good timing and a good space and a good pace and all these things, right? I mean, listen, we're coming into election cycles,
Right.
right?
Yep.
People don't shake hands and kiss babies for no reason.
Right.
They
Yeah.
while they do feel like they bring something exceptional to the table, and it's obvious they think that, because if they did not, they would not be campaigning and presenting themselves in a way that says, I should be president.
Right.
I should be in the House of Representatives.
Right.
I should be your next, mayor or your next, right? And they're trying to articulate all the reasons why they are cut above,
Yeah.
the rest, right?
Yeah.
But, really good politicians, make you feel like they're so relatable and common to you and connected to you. While they're doing that, they don't, well, things are changing nowadays, but historically, they tend to not so separate themselves in a way that it's like off-putting, right? So, I'm sure there's a psychology to this. And, my mind has gone down these paths to say, oh man, especially as I've personally evolved. And I know, there were seasons when I look back that it's like, oh man, I might have been really focused in on my performative value and could have benefited to be more service oriented, and be more relatable and, position my strengths in certain ways. Because another very important component of leadership is kind of, I want to say sponsorship, but, sponsorship typically is when people who are already in forms of power and, better yet, authority then say, hey, we're bringing Candace into this, and we're going to put our stamp on this person, and we're going to back this person, right? But there's another component of it, which does come down to the people kind of choosing you too.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that I've come to really understand is the difference between power and really authority. Inside of sponsorship is authority, right? Power is what you personally have the ability to do to affect impact and change, right? It's within you.
Right. Yeah.
But authority is from the outside of you. It's when either someone higher than you says, when Candace speaks, we will back everything Candace says and does, right? Or it's when people amongst you says, man, we're going to elevate Candace's voice. We're going to elevate Candace's, perspective. And whenever she speaks, we're going to follow, right? And in the ideal world, you want both.
Yeah.
You want both of these things to effectively operate in authority, which is the best way to function in leadership, right? Because that becomes more systemic, right? When you're more focused on just your personal power, it's all about performative value. And you have to start super strong and end super strong.
Yeah.
So, if I'm a very strong man and, I have some piece of furniture or something like that, and I want to move it from one side of a room to another, if I'm very strong, I may be able to, in an exceptional way, pick that furniture up, throw it on my back, and carry it to the other side of the room, right?
Yeah.
That's great, but at some point, I'm going to get worn out if I'm
Yes.
doing that all day.
Yes.
But if I'm functioning in something systemic and I've done the right things and I've gained levels of authority, I might could say to some other people, even if I'm a man that's not very strong at all, hey guys, would you three guys over here, would you mind grabbing that piece of furniture and moving it from over here to over here?
Right.
And I got it done just as easily, in fact, easier,
Right.
because
Yeah.
of my relational connection and the way my personal value is positioned in a system of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I found that it's kind of counterintuitive to come up into authority versus relying on personal power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, the scriptures talk about this too. It says the kingdom is an upside down kingdom. It says
Yeah.
the first will be last, the last will be first, and the
Mm-hmm.
greatest in the kingdom is the servant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the person that goes down that ends up leveling up
Right.
versus the person that tries to elevate themselves up.
Right.
That person will be abased, right?
Right.
That type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I find that it
So good.
rings true.
It is true.
It rings true.
Yeah.
Being service oriented is the greatest path to leveling up into your personal leadership, because it presents your strengths, your uniqueness in a way that is to the interests of people.
Right.
And then the people get a chance to choose you.
Right.
And then say, oh man, we want to elevate Candace, because we find great value and uniqueness in what she brings to the table.
Yeah, that takes a real revelation of your own value and a desire to submit that value for the benefit of other people.
Yeah, it really takes deep internal maturity
Yeah.
and security too.
Yes, for sure. It's so interesting because it could feel risky to take something. When people are exceptional, the thing that they're known for and that they find the most valuable can become fragile
Yes.
if it's rejected by other people, right? If it's not accepted or if it's not valued the
Right.
way they value it, So I just think it's interesting, and I think it takes a revelation of the benefit of the value you have to offer other people. This is a very interesting conversation. It's making me think about some of the greatest leaders that I've been blessed to encounter in my life, and the pros and cons of different types of leadership that I've learned from. Some of the greatest leaders that I know are the most inconspicuous people. You wouldn't know their name. They're just seem like a regular person who puts their pants on just like we do, who is just does their day-to-day living. They're so relatable, so human, so touchable. But their influence is great across many different types of people. Their fingerprint, is so detectable across many different types of people. And that's such a powerful place to be. I don't even know if the people that I have in my mind that I'm thinking about know that about themselves.
I was literally thinking that. I was thinking what's interesting about this is it can be a mix of people that seem like they don't even know, that they're as much of a leader as they are.
Right.
Or this person is very skilled,
Right.
as far as the type of information they've consumed
Yeah.
and the type of things that have informed them and their inner maturity and things like that. Because there is a dark side of leadership. I mean, we're talking about leadership from the performer perspective as it being something everyone always celebrates.
Right.
But that's not always the case. Sometimes when you are exceptional and you stand out, there is a crowd that wants to diminish and tear that down because it becomes a mirror to people on what they're not able to do. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's that dark side of it too. So sometimes there can be quite a fear to say, well, do I subjugate the uniqueness of what I am to others with the risk that they may abuse it or misuse it or mistreat it or whatever the case may be? Or do I use my exceptionalism and my performative value to control environments and control the temperature so that I make sure that it's used how I think it should be used? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the dilemma. That's definitely the dilemma of leadership. And I think the two are neither one too far one way or the other is not a good thing, right?
Yeah, it definitely requires great balance,
Yes,
right? And
yeah.
often the environment determines the mix too, and the
Yes,
set of people you're dealing with
it's
determines
true.
the mix
It's true.
too.
Yeah.
But the part we can control is our personal security
Mm-hmm.
about who we are and what we are. But
Mm-hmm.
it's also, you didn't use this word, but this is what I heard: having a conviction about the
Yes,
value that needs to be brought to people,
that's right.
right? And having a deep heart for others and not
Yes,
your own self-interest
right.
first,
Yeah.
to want to bring what it is you um, have to the table
Mm-hmm.
to solve problems and meet needs and
Yeah.
things like that, and be self-sacrificing in
Mm-hmm.
ways,
Mm-hmm.
right?
For sure.
I mean, that requires a deep level of internal maturity. I
It
mean,
does.
mental, emotional, spiritual maturity. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, listen, I can testify that I've come short of this, numerous times. And there's times I was like this close,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there has been environments where I operated in exceptionalism and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
but there was another level of true leadership that
Mm-hmm.
could have been realized
Mm-hmm.
if I just had a little slight shift in perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And often it's, until you can look back in hindsight and say, oh man, that was an opportunity missed right here,
Yeah.
right? And there are people that still may think I was operating in leadership, but deep down I know, oh, it was still leaning a little bit too heavy in my own personal performative value
Mm-hmm.
and my exceptionalism,
Yeah.
as opposed to that strength that I brought to the table, in the most maximum, most optimized way, serving those people
Right.
so that they can fully embrace the totality of who I am
Yeah.
too. And I think that, makes the whole of who you are get deeply ingrained into a community,
Mm-hmm. That's true.
and you can be more of your highest self in connection with people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. I think it's important that you highlighted the shift in perspective,
Yeah.
because I think it's a great thing to have a sense of identity and know who you are and know you're
Hmm.
called to be a leader and be confident enough to pursue leadership, right?
Right.
Because I have been called by God to be a leader. Like Adam and Eve were called by God to be a leader,
Yeah.
right? So, I think it's innate in all of us to be leaders. And I think it's okay and it's a great thing to be able to uh, accept that identity as a leader and desire to express that leadership, But the key is, like you said, that shift of perspective. And I think it's natural too, when you're going through life and the natural progression of things in life, we're supposed to level up at every stage.
Hmm.
You everything in this life we live is about leveling up.
Yeah.
You literally, from childhood all the way through adult life, regardless if you take a collegiate education path or if you go to school and then you start to work a job. It doesn't matter. Even if you go from singlehood to being married to being a parent, like there's so many ways that we level up just naturally.
Hmm.
And becoming a leader is expected and at each of these levels.
Hmm.
So there is I think, a natural and cultural evolution and expectation of leadership that we all have and that we
Hmm.
all experience. And it may not always be rooted in where and who we're called to serve. It just
Yeah.
literally might be this is what I see around me and I'm emulating what I see other people do
Yeah.
to go from one level to the next.
Yeah, I was going to say, and everything you just said, I think it hinges on what you learn from one stage to the next,
Yes.
and whether you are gaining the insights and the perspectives. You've seen good models and examples.
Mm-hmm.
You're gaining philosophies and learning adaptations from one season to the
Yeah.
next, to know how to engage people to get results. Because
Mm-hmm.
you said early on, leadership is about being able to take other people somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, in these different phases and stages of life and these functions, are you truly, aiding to take people somewhere to their benefit, right? And it's evolving beyond the place of just your personal interests, right? Because a lot of times in what we think is leadership, meaning this exceptionalism and this performative value, in some cases, it can often only be serving just a person's ego,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Say, I need to be exceptional at all times so that I feel important and significant and that I'm unique and stand a cut above others, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're leading,
No.
because it's not serving people and it's not taking people anywhere,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's just about your own personal value and interest in the world. And I think we all have a part of us that needs to feel significant. But I think it's a low level of our personal evolution if we stay there.
Right. I was just about to say we can't get stuck there though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a necessary season and a necessary moment to come into as you develop.
Yeah.
But to stay there is not really going to maximize your fullest potential or benefit others.
Yeah. And listen, if you think about legacy and being renowned, right? Once again, a person can be renowned for being so exceptional. But if you took two people and they were both equally renowned and one of them was very renowned for, man, they could do things that no one else could do. But then you had another person that was renowned for, man, the amount of people their life served and helped and like benefited and things like that. Which one kind of lives longer and has more reach typically and echoes throughout history,
Yeah.
To me, it definitely tends to be the one that their life served a wide span of people and touched many lives in some type of way that had significance and, deeply benefited people, things like that, and we just have to get in touch with, well, which one of these tends to motivate me the most,
For sure. And I mean, this is really in every area of life. Like, which one motivates me? Because I think it could be different depending on what area of life you're focusing on, right?
Yeah.
So you could be, maybe more ego-driven in business or corporate or your career. Maybe a little more service-oriented when it comes to family or community or, what have you. I think it can fluctuate, depending on what you're focused on and what you're aiming for. And I think it is a very important thing to consider, just kind of checking in with yourself about what's motivating you in each area that you serve in or that you lead in. I think that's super important and very powerful.
I think to the people you were mentioning that, their fingerprint is, in a wide range of spaces, but they're kind of inconspicuous. I mean, we're not in their skin, but perhaps they might have just been so focused on serving people that it just resulted in them having great influence and great, impact. But that's not their first focus. Their focus is bringing value to people.
Right.
And I'll say this too, having a high emphasis on performative value, performance is an exhausting thing because when you lead with that, you must finish with that too. When you start with it, you have to finish with it, right? And you can't afford to drop. So you talked about the Olympics. Man, you could have a guy that's running, I mean, they are breaking records on, different races and things like that. And we'll be like, wow, he's amazing. But then if there's some races where this person begins to fall behind and not keep up with what they've done before, or, other people start breaking their records, then they lose their value, right?
Yes.
Because once they did it once, we want them to keep doing it, keep hitting that speed, keep breaking those records, all those type of things.
Yeah.
And we, people who vicariously live through them become deeply disappointed once
Yeah.
they start losing, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know why Mike Tyson just caught in my mind,
Oh
but
yeah.
I was a big Mike Tyson fan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when Mike Tyson was up, it was like
Mhm.
amazing,
Mhm.
right? But when
Yeah.
he started to, fall a bit and take some losses and kind of unravel in different ways,
Mhm.
it's like deeply disappointing because
Yeah.
his value was in his wins and
Yeah.
the knockouts he did and all the different stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, there's many people that, when their value is in that performative space, it all hinges
On
on the
that. Yep.
performance,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But service is different. Service is, it can come in many forms, but it's all about how it resonated with the need of a particular person
Right.
from one moment to the next, right?
Exactly.
So it could
Exactly.
be a small gesture
Right.
or it could be a big one.
Right.
And it lasts longer.
I'm a firm believer that it lasts longer because it has a multiplied effect.
Yeah.
I believe that when a person receives their need being met, that it has to affect the people that are connected to that person,
Yeah, yeah.
and it just becomes this multiplied impact
Mhm.
that the initiator of meeting that need may never see.
Wow. I heard a couple of things in what you said. It's more infectious
Yes.
and it becomes more repeatable or duplicatable,
Yes.
right? By
Yes.
another person,
Yes.
as opposed to when you're starting with, no, I'm trying to distinguish by doing things others cannot do.
Right.
It becomes, less likely that someone can duplicate that,
Mm-hmm.
but you can always duplicate a heart of service,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You can always duplicate bringing whatever strengths you have,
Mm-hmm.
but packaging it with an emphasis on the needs of people,
Right. Yep.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
that becomes infectious to where other
Mm-hmm.
people will be like, man, I want to be a leader like Candace
Right.
was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like Candace was strong at this, but the heart in which she presented her strengths were all about benefiting people.
Right.
And I don't have exactly the gifts and the talents that Candace does, but these are my gifts and talents, but I want to do it the way Candace did it,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's more powerful and more impactful than the opposite.
Yeah.
I think it's way more powerful and impactful.
Yeah.
Um, you know, oh my gosh. And it's more inspirational too. I think of some of the most impactful leaders that I have been blessed to have in my life were people that were ones that saw something that I needed and intentionally made an investment. Teachers that saw,
Yeah.
something in me that were like, hey, I think you should do this. You should try that, that saw something and then encouraged me and or pushed me even to explore some of my gifts and talents and the things that they saw in me and how that's still having an impact on my life today.
Yeah.
The fact that they saw something in me and encouraged me.
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking about that and then the difference between, going to a concert of my favorite performer. Like it's a memory and a moment in time, and I'm glad to be a part of that in our culture, right? But when it comes to the ripple effect, that's not likely to impact how I lead my kids.
Yeah.
It's not likely to impact, like, because I had an experience. For example, I had a teacher that really saw some gifts in me and was super critical in helping me to have opportunities that prepared me to go down, paths to maximize those gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact of that to this day is something as simple as our children. Our children have gifts, and being able to see those gifts in them
Mm-hmm.
and have a desire to nurture them at an even earlier age
Yeah.
because of having been the recipient of someone's leadership in my life in that way, that service to me.
Yeah.
It makes me want to serve our kids, and not just our kids, but other kids too.
Others, yeah.
Yeah, to say, oh man, I see someone did that for me. I want to make sure I share that same blessing or that same benefit with someone else. And who knows how being able to encourage, pour into them, provide opportunities for them is going to shape their potential or their belief in themselves that's then going to impact someone else.
And shape their future.
Yeah.
While you were talking, you started talking about teachers, and my mind started
Yeah.
going down the list of teachers and things
Yeah.
like that matter to me.
Yeah.
And, I had to fight the temptation to start calling names
Right,
because
yeah.
in my heart, these people are famous.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. Like everyone would know who they
Yeah, exactly,
are. Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But there are people watching this is like, who is that? They would be like,
Right.
who's that? But for me,
Right.
this person is renowned
Yes.
because
Yeah.
of the impact that they
Yep.
made on my life.
Right.
And so therefore they're deep in my heart.
Exactly.
Interestingly enough, just this week, I was having a conversation with, a great friend of mine. That was my best friend
Yeah.
growing up in elementary school.
Yeah.
And I started talking about a particular teacher that just meant the world to me. Like, especially with the things that was going on in my life at that time.
Yeah.
That teacher was everything. And I don't know if that particular teacher knew it, but that teacher was what I looked forward to from day to day.
Yeah.
To go to school and just interact with that teacher and like encounter that teacher. That teacher made me feel like I mattered,
Yeah.
And like so many other nuances of
For
how I
sure.
engaged that person.
Yeah.
And I hope they know. I don't know for sure if they knew. I assume they knew,
Yeah.
But this person has lasted with me to today. And I actually was talking about how that teacher and a few other people's contributions made a deep impact on me at that time period and how much I needed those
Yeah.
people
Yep.
at that time period. And that, of course, helped carry me to who I am today. So that type of touch with people and service to people, it gets deep in people's heart and their
does.
lives, and it's so much more meaningful than just the thing that's exceptional performance, right?
That's exactly
And
right.
that's really what I wanted to talk about, like just that slight difference in emphasis, right? And the impact, right? And the intentionality it takes to have the right mix and the right balance,
Yeah.
and to go out into the world and make sure that the things we've been gifted with and we've been given as unique strengths is something that everyone can benefit from and gain great value from, and you be famous in somebody else's heart one day.
Right.
Whether your name is on a billboard or your name is ringing to the world and all that type of stuff. But to someone, you might be on the billboard of their heart,
That's
right?
right.
Because of what you brought to them.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the true leadership, service. And then as you present your strengths and you're serving people, you level up in the best ways because people get a chance to also choose you, right?
Yeah.
And then others who may already be operating in forms of leadership and authorities and things like that can choose you as well. And it becomes a part of an ecosystem, right?
Yep.
And ecosystems are another form of community, right? It's not just the general gathering of people, but it's the gathering of people and then systems and responsibilities and accountabilities for the components of that ecosystem, and those systems get put into place, and people are able to bring their strength and their leadership to make sure that the ecosystem and the systems and the community is functioning in the most optimal way, right? And that's where we really find value.
Yes.
And I think that's what most people are searching for. Like, where can I bring the things that I'm unique and strong in, and it can serve a greater good in a way that many people value, right?
That's true. I would even say as a leader, it's more fulfilling to be a part of what you just described. And even whether you know it or not, I do think there's an internal satisfaction, a fulfillment that comes, whether it's conscious or subconscious, that you receive from being able to be a person that blesses someone like that or pours into another person or encourages another person. I'm also a firm believer that you reap what you sow, and I think that when you sow seeds of, service to others, you receive those seeds back in some form, and multiplied, And I think, at least I hope that this conversation, I know for me, it's making me evaluate every area of my realms of responsibility where I have leadership that I bring to the table, and what's evaluating, like, what's my posture, what's my motivation,
Yeah.
what am I looking to accomplish in each of these areas, so that I can maximize leadership,
Yeah.
And not get stuck at trying to do something that's just exceptional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But listen, let me admit this. It's easier said than done.
Way.
I mean, we all have experiences that inform who we are, and then we're all in different stages of
Yeah.
our personal evolution. So different things matter to us, more in different seasons. And that's whether it's consciously
Yeah.
or subconsciously. Different things trigger us because of our experiences and things like that. I mean, to me, evaluating this, I said before, I thought of moments that I was that close to just really maximizing the true leadership I brought to the table.
Yeah.
But I see how one small nuance
Yeah.
triggered something on the inside of me, and it made me position my strengths in a way that didn't realize that maximum
Yeah.
amount of leadership,
Yeah.
because it might have triggered me to be a bit guarded in some type of way, or
Yep.
not want to be as vulnerable
Yep.
by truly being in that posture of service to
Yeah.
others,
Yeah.
or, want to just lead with my strength, because with that strength, I can kind of control the temperature
Right.
and
Yep.
control the atmosphere,
Yep.
or,
Yep.
whatever the case may be, And so it really takes a great level of just inner strength to emphasize serving people and putting people first.
It does.
Right, it really does.
It really does. Oh man, when you were talking, it just made me think about Jesus' example, on multiple levels.
Yeah.
First of all, how he came to the disciples, saw something in them, and said, "Hey, you, come follow me." He was with them. He lived with them. He taught them. He was patient with them. Like, he did life with them. And even when they sinned against him or betrayed him or hurt him, he still loved them. He still led them. He still forgave them. And he still led them to their place of leadership and purpose.
Right,
He was
right.
committed to them, to his service to them. And he was still fully in touch with his identity.
Yeah.
Like, he knew exactly who he was. And he didn't think, the Bible says that he didn't think it robbery, right, to be equal with God and come here in the form of man to serve us.
Yeah.
Man,
but think about the emphasis of service. It informed how he brought his strengths too.
Yes.
Because if I'm the type of person that I can command seas
Let me tell
and
you.
wind and I can
I would have been doing
control,
all kinds of stuff.
I could position those strengths much differently
Heck yeah.
on how I want to engage this world,
Seriously,
right?
yes.
But, instead, the benefit and service to others informed how he packaged those strengths.
Yeah, it did.
And, brought it to serve what the world needed, right? And many people were upset about that approach, right? Because there were those that wanted a
him
different
to
approach,
be exceptional,
right?
Yeah.
Wanted him to come in his strength and his
Yes.
power and bring about change, utilizing his strengths as something that dominates,
Right.
as opposed to something that serves, right? And, I think it's why, Christ's name rings till today.
It sure does.
Right.
Yes.
And, our personal pursuit is to be more like him.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, this conversation, these thoughts about philosophies of leadership, man, is, it was just really on my mind. I wanted to talk about it, and we wanted to talk about it with you all and let it be food for thought, right? How do you go out and engage the world from here? How do you identify your uniqueness, but learn the best way to position it for people?
Yeah.
Are you more focused on your personal performative value and leveling up in a way that you come over top of people and you kind of dominate with your strengths? Are you more focused at seeing how those strengths can come alongside other people and aid them and close gaps on their weaknesses because you walk in that strength and make deep impacts and deposits with people?
Yeah.
Right? What tends to be your motivation?
Yeah, leave a comment. We want to know what motivates you.
We want to know.
Yeah.
Hey, man, this is always a great
good.
conversation.
So good.
So good. We hope that you're benefiting and being blessed by it. As my lovely wife Candace said, we would love to get your comments. We would love to get your feedback. I mean, specifically with this, we want to be sure that this is a service to you all, right?
Yes.
So we want to hear it. We need to hear it, right? And with that feedback, we can, home in on things that you may want us to talk about.
Yeah.
That matters to you, that will serve you.
Yep.
Good conversations that can be had, right?
Yeah.
Because we want this to be a benefit.
For sure.
All right, Parafam. As always, once again, Joe Hinton here.
Candace here.
Till next time, grace and peace will holler.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.